Thank you for being here. Our modern day relationships are some of the things that cause the most struggles in our lives. And I want to go a little bit deeper into relationships and why we let them mess up our lives so much versus being in a harmonious relationship with someone that feels so fulfilling for yourself. I think a lot of the times I've had this conversation many times in my life, and everyone that I speak to it with is like, "Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense," and it will probably make sense to you when you hear it too. But the reason our relationships are such a struggle is because we are okay. Let's take romantic relationships for example. So our romantic relationships are always integrated with a lot of conflict and a lot of pain. Um, People literally say that like love hurts when I don't think that's how it's supposed to be or like how it should be, because like unconditional love is like the most thrilling and beautiful feeling ever when you have unconditional love. And you know where that starts? To have a harmonious relationship with someone else, it starts with that harmonious relationship with ourselves. So if we want to have a beautiful relationship with someone and not have all these jealous feelings or insecurities about whether they're going to leave us or not, we have to drop down our heart walls and allow ourselves to love what's inside first, because it all starts from within. If you can't love yourself, how could you possibly love another person? And you have to love yourself unconditionally, which means that you understand that your relationship is meant to trigger you. It is meant to show you what you need to work on. Your partner, you chose this partner because you guys have something similar. You have some connection that makes you feel good. And then we get deeper into the relationship and we start triggering each other. We start projecting our own insecurities and our inner fears on this other person, and choosing to blame them for what's wrong in the relationship, when in reality, any relationship that you have, if somebody is triggering you, it means you need to look at your own shit. And so we have people in our lives who mirror us. So all of these relationships in our lives are mirrors to us. And it's like we they show up as the aspects of us that we haven't accepted yet. So when we blame them, you're only continuing and feeding that limiting belief longer. So what really we need to do is, instead of projecting our shit onto other people, we look at our own shit, we love ourselves unconditionally, and open our hearts to what this other person has to offer us. Because every single relationship that we get in our life will teach us something, and that's the way we need to look at it. We need to look at our relationships like, okay, this is going to teach me something. And as it goes for abusive relationships, it's like it's kind of teaching you when to realize that enough is enough. And it's teaching you to realize that you don't have to take on other people's shit. Because when you're in an abusive relationship, I feel like they have shit to deal with. They have their own shit to deal with, and it gets projected onto you. Or maybe you allow yourself to manifest this situation so that you can learn to stand up for yourself, so that you can learn to say like, no, I don't deserve to be treated like that. Nobody deserves to be treated like that. And just be the example for yourself and get the fuck out. Because the more you get the fuck out and show up as an example of someone who is, strong and open and willing to stand up for themselves, other people are going to follow along. Like, people are going to see that, and they're going to use you to inspire them. And when it comes to self-healing, relationships can be our biggest tool because right away we're shown all these things that we don't want to face in ourselves. Literally, like someone else is triggering you where they do something or they say something and you just instantly get irritated. You instantly respond and react. Um, this is a trigger. And if you go back to video 1 of self-awareness, you can see how you can go deeper into uncovering this trigger as it stems from a limiting belief, a core belief of your being, and unravel it so that that problem that's happening in your relationship, you realize it's something that you were working on, and once you've acknowledged it, you can go back to the situation, and when it comes up again, you can realize like, okay, my reaction to this will only perpetuate this limiting belief. So I need to take a step back and I need to look at myself and be like, okay, are you good? Like, what are you dealing with right now? Like, what are you feeling? What are you experiencing that's bringing this up again? So it all comes from looking at our own shit. Literally, guys, we're at a time in the world where it's not sustainable to blame other people for anything that happens in our life, really. Like, we can't even blame the president for doing stupid shit because, like, we put him in office, didn't we? Or, like, you know, like, it's our responsibility now to choose and decide what we want in our lives and to have that image and have that visualization of, like, okay, I'm manifesting this shit into my life. And if I don't like the way my outside world looks, I need to change my inside world. Like, really, it's time for motherfucking reflection. Reflection of our own shit that we're letting other people take the blame for, especially in our relationships. And that's not only hurting you, it's hurting them too. Because they're just as confused as to why this is such a big problem as you are, probably. And another thing in relationships, like, when you decide to start doing this work and you decide to start loving yourself unconditionally, trust me, the person in your life will either drop the fuck out, like they'll leave because you're leveling up and you need someone who's gonna match you vibrationally a little bit more, or they'll level up too. So you have those options. You have the option of when you decide to make a change for yourself, the relationships that you're in, they will either fizzle out. I had so many people in my life fizzle out when I started my spiritual journey. Like, really, you realize how important it is to invest in yourself and not give your energy away to people who are sucking it out or who aren't worthy or who aren't investing in you and who don't see you as the divine being you are. And the more that you see yourself as this divine being, the more you'll attract beings into your life that also see you this way. I had a pattern for the longest time. I had a huge block on my heart, and every person that would come into my life, they would leave. They would ghost me, they would run away, and I never understood why I could never find a partner. And I realized it was because I wasn't allowing myself to look at my own shit in terms of relationships, and I was just thinking that they didn't want me, or that, you know, like I was perpetuating this patterns of insecurity and unworthiness in every relationship that I had, until I literally sat down and was like, okay, I really have a big block. I really have a big pattern around relationships, and that's something I really want to look at and change. And as soon as I started releasing all of the old attachments to people and things that weren't serving me, oh my gosh, like, the most beautiful relationships come into my life. So, and I also, this is interesting, but I watched a video a little bit ago, and it really like spoke to me and like resonated with me really deeply about like literally having a heart wall. Like, you have all this trauma from past lives or your parents or even this life where you have this block in front of you that doesn't allow you to actually express the love that you have inside of you because you haven't given it to yourself and forgave yourself and, you know, nurtured that being in you who was hurting, you know, who got hurt, who experienced this trauma. And a majority of us, I would say probably about 90 to 95% of women, have probably experienced some type of sexual trauma, rape, harassment in their life. And this makes us kind of like, you know, because we're like, why does that happen? I don't understand. And the world may never know, but I think it's honestly because we give men so much power in relationships versus like, you don't have to be like, like dominating everybody, but if you respect yourself, you won't be in relationships where people don't respect you. So it's a matter of us, holding ourselves to a standard of understanding our worth and understanding the unconditional love that is literally flowing through our entire being. Like, we are infinite. This picture right here is what I feel like we are in terms of, or like myself, like we have this aura around us that is filled with energy and filled with love, and we have beings all around us like throwing love energy at us. Like, we are not. The biggest problem is that we believe that we're separated from unconditional love that literally has no limits, love that doesn't say, oh, you can't go to dinner with your guy friends, oh, you can't go to dinner, you shouldn't be texting this person, you should be spending all your attention with me, you shouldn't, you should do this, you shouldn't do this, you should do this, you shouldn't do this. These conditions put restrictions on our relationship and put restrictions on our love. Literally, when you tell someone they can't do something or can't be who they are, you're dueling their power, and that's not okay. I don't think that's okay in relationships at all. Like, sure, have open communication about what you feel comfortable with, but ultimately, like, they should be your partner should be free to live their life exactly how they want to. Like, they are their own selves. Like, they have their own path, they have their own personality, they have their own way of doing things, and if you're not okay with that, then that's something you need to work on in yourself, as being more accepting of maybe a pattern you have that's similar to that. Like, maybe someone doesn't take out the trash very often and you get pissed off because your partner never takes out the trash. Ask yourself, have I ever taken out the trash? Like, do I take out the trash enough? What is maybe something that I do that maybe pisses them off that I'm not aware of? Like, things go both ways. Like, we can't just look at the other person and say like everything's their fault, because that's not true and that's not fair. Like, we need to look at ourselves and like accept your, not even flaws, accept your conditionings and your limitations that you've set on yourself, and allow yourself to release them. Like, literally, like, release these attachments to this idea of how a relationship should look, how it should go. That's not real life. Like, your relationship could look any way that you want. And it's up to you to decide how you want it to look by looking at your relationship with yourself and saying, okay, how can I improve my own relationship to then translate into the external world and provide me with relationships that are fulfilling, that feel really good, that make me like know that I can be my true self and not have to be afraid of like expressing myself, or not have to be afraid of, doing the quirky, silly things that I love to do, like headstands or handstands everywhere. Anyway, that was a random example, but you get the point. Like, your relationship with yourself is going to determine the relationships you have with people in your external world. So start there. Start with your relationship with yourself, and then start looking at the triggers that other people in your lives are presenting you with. Start looking at the reflections that these people are showing, or that are mirroring the aspects of you. So look inward. Everything is inward. And you will find the most answers to any of your relationship problems if you actually slow the heck down and go within. I love you guys. I hope this helped in any way possible. You can drop me some comments, or maybe even DM me on Instagram if you have any suggestions for what you want to hear me talk about. But yeah, I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Aloha.